So the Codex vision, where the Codex comes together to create food safety and the quality standards to protect everyone, everywhere.
I'm going to ask you to do that for me, please, because this is, yeah. So the next slide, please. Thank you. The next one as well.
There is a number of core values that we rely on, which earlier was mentioned, which includes inclusiveness, collaboration, consensus building, and transparency. And these are the values that we rely on in the Codex Alimentarius, and it's recommended to organizational or regulatory measures at the regional level and the international level. So amongst these core values is inclusiveness, which means how to include or to get engaged in the decision-making process. So this will, as you know, the Codex Alimentarius comprises 189 members, 188 countries, and one organization, which is the European Union. And the other day, I read that there are 240 observers, and the number is increasing because we receive applications from non-governmental organizations around the globe who would like to get engaged in the Codex because they provide support to productive sectors, various productive sectors. Because they want to they have a wide range representation beyond the state's boundaries, and they believe that they can work or occupy the position of an observer in the Codex Alimentarius. So among the 240 observers, there are 165 non-governmental organizations, and there are organizations that represent different productive sectors at the regional level and the international level as well. So when we study the different or review the different guidelines of the Codex, this is a slide that is extracted from a presentation that was developed by the FAO and the WHO to frame the best practices of the Codex Alimentarius. There is a slide that relates to the role of the POCs, and among which, most importantly, is to engage the stakeholder and how to conduct consultations and the different procedures that will contribute in providing support to these consultations at the country level. And here, each country is granted the right to choose the method of preparing and creating the different tools and methods they opt to form these consultations or to conduct these consultations. The POCs have the ability to choose the stakeholders that need to be informed, and even beyond that, to invite them to get engaged in the creation and preparations at the national level to get the opportunity to discuss all the items that need to be discussed. As I said earlier, the coordination methods and tools or mechanism is up to each country. So each country has the responsibility to follow the coordination mechanism they see suitable for their methods of work. So we found that many countries formed national committees for the Codex Alimentarius, and they relied on these committees to choose the mechanism of coordination. And we are aware that there is a number of governmental agencies that can share their opinions or to participate in the text of the Codex Alimentarius. And there's a number of non-governmental agencies or organizations that might be interested in drafting that text. In addition, the food industrialists found themselves need to get engaged in setting the standards of the manufactural standards, since they are part of the stakeholders. They need to be they need to participate or share their opinion in this process. And regarding the stakeholders in the Arab region, and here I'm talking in front of my colleagues who represent the competent countries. For instance, there is the Kingdom of Morocco and the Republic of Egypt. The committee assigned of Codex Alimentarius comprises members who represent the industrial sector. So in the committee, you would find members who represent the governmental agencies and the non-governmental organizations who represent the production sector. There are other countries, for instance, that country I worked in, and I was honored to chair the National Committee of the Codex Alimentarius in Canada. Our committee only comprises representatives of the governmental agencies. This means so we did not choose any representatives from the stakeholders. This means that we need to have other mechanisms to support their participation. This is usually through public meetings. These public meetings are usually coordinated prior the important committees, prior the important meetings of the technical committees. So the public meetings is an announced meeting where we submit the national positions and the stakeholders are requested to share their opinions regarding the national positions. And there is the sharing of opinions is also conducted with the POCs. When the POCs receive certain documentation for the that will contribute or during the preparation phase, which will help the national experts to develop the national position. This means that the points of contact will share these documentations with the stakeholders. However, this shouldn't be done with everybody. Why? The first reason is that these documents are already published on the official website. This means, and if we expand the range of stakeholders we exchange opinions with. This means that the discussion will lose its value. We only target the stakeholders who are interested in the text, and their value will be more valuable, and this will enhance the response mechanism, or to have a more effective response and participation. There are other practices through conducting workshops and seminars that target a certain text. For instance, if the text has if the text relates to a strategic product in the for the state, this means that the preparedness to comment on that text should be in conformity or in line with the participation of the competent stakeholders who will be impacted by this text or feel that they need to participate in drafting the text. So in addition to the manufacturers, there is the consumers' rights organization and the health professional groups and the health sector and public health sector and the academia sector.
So anyone and everyone who has an experience in a specific field that would be useful for preparing the national position. And even though this is the good practice, and there are some practices that allow us to do this according to what is deemed necessary, it's important to also remember that we are going through the participation of the stakeholder based on the purpose. And even though that this would continue, that we should go through a method which is more structured and a way that is anticipated so that the stakeholders would know that there is a specific space or field for them so that they can use the space as an opportunity to express their opinions and their priorities. So, for example, what are the priorities of the country or the region when it comes to preparing standards or suggesting new texts within the codex? So, moving from ad hoc, unpredictable into the consistent and structured approach. There are some ideas that we are currently considering, for example, in frames of the joint work that we do with AidSmall. We are now working on improving and developing the programs that the organizations work when it comes to the Arab standards, in addition to working on preparing horizontal standards. So we rely on the texts of the codex to prepare guidelines and manuals related to, for example, contaminants in food or labeling of food. And usually the Arab standards resulting from the organizations are linked to commodities or are commodity standards based on other Arab country standards. So the idea is to have a bigger contribution to prepare Arab standards which consider the Arab reality, especially the scientific Arab reality, including depending on exposure assessments, which are regional based.
يتم القيام به مثلا في الاتحاد الأوروبي.
Similarly to what is being done in the EU. For example, in the EU, the EFSALM, which prepares the standards, takes into consideration the entirety of the European Union's region and helps countries individually if the decision is pertained to them, or the European Commission if this falls within its mandate. And this is what they depend on when it comes to decision making. The idea is, in frames of this preparation, there should be structured methods to support the engagement and participating of stakeholders, even when it comes to scientific preparations. And this is based on the codex and the principles for preparing the minutes. If you remember the definition in the risk communication, which means engaging the stakeholders and anyone who is relevant for decision making in each and every level of decision making, including the scientific evaluation adopted for decision making. And we still haven't made the decision or endorsed that. It's still, we are still in the brainstorming level, and the idea is to listen to your ideas, which is to depend either on a committee or a specific field through which the existence of stakeholders can be organized and structured so that it contributes to our use of the results of scientific evaluations and providing all available options to help us in making the decision on Arab standards. It can also be used in frames of the participation of stakeholders in giving their opinion regarding a text of the Codex, so that we solicit our positions and we organize our positions. So this is just an example. There could be other means, other ways that we can resort to. And we know that our colleagues within the GSO have similar means in engaging stakeholders when preparing the Gulf standards and in taking in their opinions when it comes to specific texts within the Arab Codex. What we're trying to do is to follow best practices in the region, be it at the country or the regional level. When we have such a space and a structured, organized, and anticipated way of stakeholders' engagement, this helps and supports the awareness about the importance of Codex proceedings and thus protects the Codex. I'm trying to share my experience here with you, and it might be a shared experience. Every time a minister is changed who is relevant to the work that we do, we should raise their awareness on the importance of Codex. For example, why would you be sending X and Y on studies or on study visits? They might think that people are just traveling for leisure. They do not realize that we work day and night. So every time a decision maker is changed, we should continue to justify why we are working on this, because the support of stakeholders and the comprehensive participation of stakeholders helps us in maintaining the resources allocated for that, and it also supports the national program for Codex. It also contributes to have national positions that rely on the national reality, be it the reality related to the production or consumption or information or scientific results that we can rely on. So we have the ability to effectively and efficiently represent the national reality. And of course, this also supports the sustainability of Codex programs, be it at the regional or the national level. I just wanted to give us all an opportunity for brainstorming and to think collectively and maybe listen to your experiences, even the unsuccessful experiences. We usually learn more from experiences which did not work, so please make sure you share them as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Sam. The presentation was very interesting and it was very comprehensive. You focused on the importance of engaging stakeholders in decision making, and you suggested a way to coordinate between the stakeholders in every country and the role of POCs in engaging stakeholders and how important it is to engage them in preparing the national positions and how we can support a risk-based a suggestion or proposal of standards. I wanted to share with you the experience of Egypt and how we deal with the documents and decision making and how we engage stakeholders. In Egypt, we have the National Committee for the Codex, in addition to subcommittees. And it is under the supervision of the NFSA, and we have representatives of all the stakeholders. For example, the NFSA, the EOS, and other stakeholders. Whenever we receive a document, it is disseminated to the technical secretariat, and this secretariat reviews these documents within the technical committee. We can also submit us to the national committees. The national committee comprises of all the stakeholders, and there's a strong participation from the industrial sector. The industrial sector also participate in all the national positions because we believe that they are an inseparable and unalienable part of the national committee. So we review these documents and we send it to the technical secretariat, and they then study it within subcommittees. And if there is a national position that needs to be presented to a higher level of committees, then we can do that because the national committee has a strong role in decision making than the subcommittees. So before we make the final decision and before we send it to the codex, we have to review it within the committees. This in general is how we work on decision making, or how we prepare a national position and how we engage stakeholders. The information is usually balanced within the committees, be it the subcommittees or the national committees. It is usually a third. We have the control entities, the academia, and a third for the Chamber of Industry, and this assures balance in decision making and eliminates any bias. Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify this point. If you have any questions or if you request any clarification, I would be gladly answer. Dr. Maaya from the JFDA, I would like to welcome all the colleagues visiting us in Jordan, especially that we are now celebrating the jubilee of His Majesty's assume of his role as a king. Usually there is a constant collaboration between the control entities and imports and exports of commodities in the food sector. At the JFDA, we have constant engagement, be it at the level of technical committees or the representation within the a committee of the GFDA, but we should take something into consideration when preparing the standards. And our colleagues at JESMO, my colleague Nesma Shannak and her colleagues, we might sometimes face problems. For example, currently the climate change is challenging or imposing a problem when it comes to aligning the standards with the important commodities, in addition to other economic crises and the wars that are currently going around us. All of this should be taken into consideration when we endorse the standards and during also our periodical review of these standards. I don't know to what extent or what is the frequency and pace of this work, and whether or not there are legislative committees endorsing these standards at the end of the day. Another thing that the professor was asking about is we have to create something for the Arab countries, but we need to take into consideration that most Arab countries have a large percentage of import. So the commodity might not be produced locally. So we need to look at the import resources. In Jordan, for example, most of the import is from the UAE, the KSA for some commodities, but there's also import from developing economies, countries. So there's a larger burden on approving these commodities and accepting more risk criteria so that they comply and align with the local standards. Also, we have to take into consideration how fast the food production is moving. This should also be taken into the criteria so that there is a space for anyone who is enforcing the legislation and for the control entities to have the scientific space. Maybe at the JFDA, we try to have scientific and specialized committees to guarantee at the end of the day that the food is actually safe, and to facilitate the flow of imported commodities into Jordan without causing any disturbances and without having any losses. Thank you very much for your clarification. I would like to also add that in Egypt, we started to link between preparing the Egyptian standards for food or other sectors with the Sustainable Development Goals. We link each standard to the SDGs, especially when it comes to climate change. We have also established a unit in 2022 for environmental performance, and we worked on paints, and I understand that paints are not linked to food, but since we will be working on constructions, we need to focus on SDGs and especially the goals related to environment. Professor Sam, if you have any comments to what the doctor has said, please intervene. First of all, thank you very much for your comment. And our colleagues from Jordan and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan for their hospitality. We are very pleased to be in our second home here in Jordan. Of course, the problems that you have mentioned are problems faced by every food regulatory entity, especially that the procedures prepared should conform with the national conditions, and they should take into consideration the sources of food commodities, be it national or local production or imported commodities. That is why we would like to reiterate the importance of relying the risk analysis approach as a base for decision making. This approach helps us not only because we are relying on scientific methods as it focuses on the extent of consumption, the exposure rate, etc. As you know, the patterns of consumption change from one area to another or from one country to another. And through this risk analysis, we can identify a larger population which consumes a specific commodity and require the relative or the relevant procedures and measures. This requires the availability of resources of obtaining these food or agricultural commodities. This is all taken into consideration in the decision-making process. Usually, this approach, based on the principles of Codex and the best practices followed, is what informs us that the decision made will be more sound. And I agree with you on the point that you mentioned related to the importance of revising or relooking into the decisions that have been made, which is a practice encouraged by the Codex and also followed by the Codex in frames of revising the MLs of pesticides and periodically revising additives to foods, etc. So this is one of the practices that should be encouraged and which should always be strongly available within our food regulation systems. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid Al-Sufi. I believe you have a comment. Hello, everyone. There's something that drew my attention in Dr. Sam's presentation. For example, in Egypt, we think using a specific approach or we follow a specific methodology when it comes to engaging stakeholders in the Codex committees. And I learned that Canada uses a different methodology. There is no one method that is fit for all. We should think about the best practices which allow us to align ourselves rather than follow other methodologies. The presentation was excellent, but I think that we should conclude to the best practices as something that facilitates our lives and allow us to identify the gaps between our methods and help us to align with the international trade methodologies. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid.
If I may, and I'm going to answer in English if you allow.
اسمحوا لي أن أجيب
In this approach. And the best practice, as you rightly indicated, Dr. Khalid, it's the outcome, which is essentially the level of engagement of the stakeholders in the decision-making and how the decision is truly reflective of the national or regional environment. So, and as long as this outcome continues to be our benchmark and the performance indicator of the approach, after that, I think the process that is used has to be adapted to the capacity, to even the cultural environment of the organization. I mean, in our case, I guess the choice that was made was based on other practices within the government of Canada as to how stakeholder engagement is being done. It's also on the capacity that is there to manage committees, but also the fact that capacity exists to engage stakeholders in an effective manner without having them necessarily part of a governmental committee. So, but as long as the outcome is achieved, which is essentially that we share the information that is relevant to the stakeholders, and we have the forum that allows us to get back the feedback that we need in the context of the preparation of a national position, then we achieve our objective.
شكرا بروفيسور سام. حضرتك ليك تعليق دكتور خالد؟ خالد؟
Thank you very much, Dr. Sam. Dr. Nargis, I will give you, Engineer Nargis, I will give you the floor to speak. Thank you very much, Dr. Sami. The presentation was comprehensive and very clear. No one disagrees on the importance of engaging stakeholders because they come from different events, consumer protection organization, governmental organizations, INGOs, etc. But the coordination at the national level, we should focus on impartiality, which is one of the values of Codex. But the decision, the final decision, should be in the hands of the government of the country, so they can give their opinion at the national level. But it would be difficult to take their opinion at the regional level because every country has their own industrial fabric, let's say, consisting of small or medium enterprises. So large enterprises in specific sectors should not be decision makers if 80% of your sector consists of small and medium enterprises, then you should take the opinions that guarantees food safety, which is a line that we cannot cross, and we should take their opinions in a way that guarantees the interest or benefit of the majority of enterprises. So we should focus on the national coordination, but I assure you that the regional coordination would be difficult. And that's French. Some organizations focusing on the coordination at the Codex level should be participating as observers, I believe is what she said.
Exactly. We have to applaud the Arabic. We have to applaud the Arabic, you know? So
شكرا دكتور نرجس. في أي استفسار تاني؟ دكتورة كريمة.
Thank you very much. Is there any other inquiry? Dr. Karima, maybe? Thank you very much, Ms. Hanan. I would like to share with you an experience that the Moroccan kingdom follows when it comes to engaging stakeholders, and especially when it comes to developing standards. Recently, we have established an electronic platform to activate the communication and to facilitate the availability of standards and information and to have them more accessible for producers and the industrial section. Because as you know, these standards that we prepare are for the interest of the industrial sector and the producers. So it's very important to have these decisions delivered and have them accessible for the producers and industrial sector, as they are a cornerstone in decision making. And it's important to engage them when it comes to decisions related to food safety. So given the importance of this issue, we needed to find a mechanism to deliver this information and to get feedback and opinion during the decision-making process from all relevant stakeholders. So I applaud and commend Dr. Samuel's presentation and opinion on that related to the importance of engaging stakeholders in preparing codex and standards, and to follow effective and efficient mechanism which guarantee the participation and informing of all stakeholders on the important things that we work on, and to collect their opinions and to give them an effective role in advancing the process of decision making. Another objective that we were aiming at was to be able to gather the data and information provided by them. As you know, data related to commodities and all the activities of Codex require collecting this information to be taken into consideration in risk assessment. Risk assessment is a very important aspect that should be taken into consideration when crystallizing the standards. So all the information available at the level of the country are considered of utmost importance, and the industrial sector is a good source of this type of information, which need to be integrated in frames of this important process. Thank you very much, Dr. Karima. Engineer Mariam, the microphone is with you. Thank you. I believe that this discussion is not novel. It's not new. It should have been or might have been presented previously by Codex, and I believe that Codex have found solutions when they prepared the guidelines for establishing national committees and the way they are formed. And I believe that Professor Sam, has clarified the importance of the engagement of the private sector. The National Committee, yes, has a representation of the private sector when it comes to syndicates, chambers of trades, etc. But at the top of these national committees, we have the public sector. In addition to the fact that the decisions issued by the national committees pertain to the administrations of the countries. Also, the Codex itself has found a coordination mechanism by forming regional committees. So we would not set these aside and reinvent the wheel. The decisions should be considered as country decisions that will be later presented to international and regional platforms. With no doubt, we should have all the information at the table in front of us, and the relevant administration or the public sector might be able to choose from these options. And yes, of course, we need to listen to everyone's opinions to see where we are at Codex, and we need to rely on third parties when it comes to control or other fields, and the country needs to decide who will be the supervisor or will oversee the work of all of these entities. We need to absorb everything that is being applied and to align it and adapt it depending on the reality of our countries.
Thank you very much. I believe that Professor Sam in his presentation said that the decision making might be different from a country to another through the created committees, and maybe the objective of the presentation of Professor Sam was to confirm that the industrial sector should play a role should play a role in participating in the decision-making process. Some countries choose or prevent the industrial sector from sharing their opinion. Dr. Sam, would you like to comment? Dr. Ahmed? An experience referred by Professor Samuel, which is the experience of the GCC. In 2013, there was a series of meetings with the ministerial representatives and the different stakeholders, and this resulted in creating a guideline to set the standard specifications and their projects, and the committee allowed the different stakeholders from the private sector, from the Importance Association or the Chamber of Commerce to share their opinion and get engaged. And currently we have a number of committees that encompass representatives of the different stakeholders, and they provide their observations and notes regarding the current standards, and they share their opinion through the committees from one side, and also through the digital platform and the electronic outlets. And in addition, there are technical committees. For instance, last year, during the previous colloquium, we had a meeting to discuss a joint meeting with the competent agencies and the different stakeholders to provide their observations regarding the food additives and the different standards and any other opinions they found suitable. Like Mariam had said earlier, and since the main implementer in adopting the standards is the state. Thank you very much. Do you have any other comments? Now we have come to, I believe that this session has come to the end.